Picture this. You're 8 years old. It's 3 a.m. when police flood, your home guns drawn, faces masked, boots pounding the hallway like thunder. Your father, towering, tattooed, and impossibly calm, doesn't flinch as they drag him away. Neighbors whisper. Teachers look at you differently. And deep down, you know the truth no child should have to carry. Your dad is the most feared biker in America. This is the story you've never heard, the real life of a child growing up with a Bandidos President for a father. Before we go any further, quick note. This story draws on public reporting and composite experiences to protect identities. We don't glorify crime, we tell true, human stories so you understand the world that rides beside you. If you value that honesty, hit subscribe now. And drop ready in the comments so I know you're with me. The world behind the patch is wrapped in myth-loud engines, heavy leather, iron laws. But for the families living in the shadow of those colors, it's something else entirely. Danger that doesn't clock out, loyalty that costs blood, and choices no kid should have to make. Meet Jake Morrison, son of Iron Mike Morrison, legendary president of the Bandidos Texas chapter. Jake's life was never normal. His bedtime stories weren't fairy tales. They were whispered recaps of turf wars and betrayals. His playdates happened in back rooms guarded by men with scarred knuckles and nicknames like Crusher and Viper. Every birthday candle he blew out came with a silent wish most 8-year-olds never make. That dad would make it home alive. This is the story of a boy forced to choose between blood and freedom. Jake didn't grow up in a house. He grew up in a fortress. Security cameras blinked in every corner. Guard dogs paced the gate. The windows were bullet-resistant, the doors reinforced steel. His father ran the Bandidos like a military operation. At breakfast, Jake learned club colors and enemy insignias, the way other kids learned state capitals. At dinner, he picked up a vocabulary no child should know: shipments, alliances, payback. School felt like a minefield. Kids were scared of him. Teachers watched him with that tight, worried face adults wear when they don't know what to do. Sometimes unmarked cars idled across the street. Sometimes rival faces showed up 2 blocks away and hung around too long. Every day taught the same lesson: survive first. Everything else second. Being the son of a Bandidos president came with rules you didn't break. Never talk to police. Never show weakness. Never question the brotherhood. Never betray the patch. Iron Mike was protector and warden, a man who would kill for you and ask the same in return. At 12, Jake got his first gun. At 14, he saw his first lesson. A member punished for betrayal while the room kept quiet and the clock on the wall ticked loud enough to rattle your teeth. He learned early. Loyalty is everything, and the price of disloyalty is blood. The biker wars of the 90s were more than headlines for Jake. They were home. When the Hells Angels pushed, when the Mongols circled, the fight came to their doorstep. One night, the family car alarm exploded into the air, and the dogs went wildfowl's alarm. Maybe someone timing how long it took the guards to sweep the yard. Another night, a sedan crawled past the house twice, then 3 times. Windows blacked, plates dirty. Car bombs, drive-bys, ambushes. Those weren't rumors. They were possibilities you planned for. Jake's school went into lockdown after a tip that rivals planned to grab him at dismissal, turn a child into a bargaining chip. Iron Mike doubled the guards, doubled the guns, doubled every precaution. The fortress bristled. Jake watched his father become a general in a war without rules. And he understood something ugly and simple. In this world, mercy looks like weakness. And weakness invites the wolves. Fear became the backdrop to everything. He learned to recognize undercover cops by the shoes they wore and the way their eyes moved. He learned to read a face for betrayal, the way most kids read comic books. His friends were other club kids, who spoke the same silent languages, who knew you keep your backpack close. You never post your location. You never invite a friend home without permission. But the worst fear was for the people he loved. The night his younger sister caught shrapnel from a bombing meant for their father, the world tilted. She lived barely, but the blood on the kitchen floor never really washed away. Jake didn't stop checking locks after that. He didn't stop sleeping in his shoes. He didn't stop listening for the wrong car to slow down outside. At 16, the bill for his last name came due. Iron Mike called him into the inner sanctum walls, lined with photos of brothers dead and brothers gone. A table scarred by decades of planning and vengeance. Jake knew what it meant before his father said the words. It was time to earn the patch. The task served cold and simple. Take out a rival. Prove your loyalty with blood. Jake's mouth went dry. The club wasn't just his family, it was his identity, his whole history. But crossing that line would make him the thing he feared. Lying awake at night, he nodded. Because that is what you do when a general gives an order. Then he went home, shut his door, and stared at the ceiling until sunrise. Counting the seconds between car headlights passing the curtains, the next night, he started planning his escape. Leaving the Bandidos isn't quitting a job. It's stepping off a cliff and praying the fall doesn't end with a bullet. Jake needed a miracle. He found a man with the courage to offer one, a sympathetic uncle who saw the boy under the armor, and a federal agent who understood that some kids don't get to choose the cards they're dealt. They organized the kind of exit you only hear about in Story Snoo, ID, burner phones, a map covered in pencil lines. Jake cut his hair, burned the old clothes, kissed his sister's forehead while she slept, and disappeared into the American heartland. He left behind everything: his father's pride, his mother's silence, the only friends who knew his real name. He learned how to be nobody on purpose. He learned that freedom tastes like fear for a long time before it tastes like anything else. Freedom was a hard teacher. He took odd jobs: dishwasher, warehouse loader, night janitor. He moved constantly, never staying long enough to get comfortable. He paid cash, kept his head down, and invented a dozen harmless backstories that all started to sound the same. But the skills his father taught him, them's intended for survival inside the patch cocoon, the ones that kept him alive outside it. Reading people, noticing exits, hearing the lie in the middle of the truth, thinking like a criminal so he could stay one step ahead of them. He saved, studied at night, and enrolled under a name that wasn't his. Earning a degree in criminology because the only way to stop running was to turn and face the thing he'd been running from. He trained, he tested, he slipped into law enforcement quietly, almost like an apology to himself, to his sister, to the kid he used to be. Jake's expertise made him invaluable. He understood the rhythm of outlaw life in a way no textbook ever could. He knew the difference between bravado and intent. He knew how a clubhouse breathes when something is about to go wrong. Task forces called him in, slid cold files across the table, and watched him find the pulse others missed. He led investigations into biker networks, not as a tourist but as someone who knew exactly how the path is laid. Every bust, every arrest, drew a line back toward the club he left, and the father whose shadow he couldn't outrun. Operation Iron Thunder started as a rumor and turned into a wave. Multiple agencies, months of surveillance, encrypted messages, cracked warrants, stacked like storm clouds. The target list was thick. One name weighed more than the rest: Iron Mike Morrison. The raid team assembled in the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. Dawn waited on the horizon. Jake checked his gear with hands that didn't shake and a heart that did. When the door went down and boots thundered rooms the way they had when he was 8, the past and the present collided so hard the world went white around the edges. Iron Mike turned. Father and son locked eyes across a kitchen table, scarred by 1,000 plans. The old man's voice came out, shattered glass and gravel. You were supposed to be dead. Jake holstered history and answered with the only truth that ever mattered. I was, but I chose to live. Freedom carries a cost. Jake's choice tore his family in half. His father went to prison. Friends from the old life called him a traitor, a ghost, or worse. He'll never be able to go home, and not the place with the cameras, not the fake town with the quiet job. He can't post a childhood photo without calculating who might be watching. He can't walk into a biker bar without hearing the old rules snap back like a trap. But he found peace in a place patches can't reach. He broke the cycle. He chose a future that didn't end with a patch draped over a coffin and a kid crying into a leather vest. The outlaw world is built on secrets, loyalty, and fear. For every patch, there's a family living in its shadow, mothers who learn to sleep light. Kids who can pick out a tale from a school bus window. Sisters who grow up believing the loudest love is the most dangerous. Jake's story is just one of many children forced to choose between blood and freedom, loyalty and conscience. The name on their birth certificate and the person they might become if they ran far enough. Long enough, fast enough. If you're still with me, take a breath. Drop still here in the comments so I know you didn't bail when it got heavy. Hit like so this story reaches someone who needs it. And tell me this. What would you have done at 16? Earn the patch or run? There's no easy answer. That's why this story matters. The media loves the legend, roaring engines, the brotherhood, the iron-fisted leaders. But the truth is messier and far more human. For every act of violence, there's a kid waiting up. Ears straining to hear whether dad's boots or a stranger's boots are on the porch. For every patch earned, there's a family member losing sleep. Jake's story isn't just about escaping a club. It's about breaking a generational spell that says your last name is your fate. He wrote a new ending with shaky hands and a spine made of stubborn hope. The ripple effect reached far beyond one life. Jake's testimony helped put away dangerous men and dismantle networks that chewed through communities and spat out lives. He saved people he'll never meet. But every victory carried a private weight guilt that his blood went to prison because of him. Fear that one day a face from the old life will step out of a crowd with an old debt to collect. His choice inspired other skids' wives, even some old members to ask what loyalty costs and what freedom is worth. For every person he saved, there's a part of him that still aches when he hears an engine idle too. Long outside his window, if you're a kid growing up in the shadow of a patch, listen close. Your future isn't written in club colors. You can break free. You can rewrite your story. Choosing your life over a legend doesn't make you weak. It makes you brave in a way most adults never have to be. Jake did it. It wasn't easy. It wasn't safe. But it was worth it. No one, even the most feared biker in America, gets to own your destiny. That belongs to you. Today, Jake works with at-risk youth. He sits across from kids who wear the same haunted look he used to see in his mirror. And he tells them what no one told him. You are allowed to leave. He speaks at schools, trains law enforcement on how not to turn a frightened teenager into a permanent enemy, and counsels families who feel the walls closing in. He tells his story not to shame a club, but to warn others about the cost of living under a patch that asks too much. He's proof that even in the darkest rooms, someone can find the door. Sometimes, the bravest thing you'll ever do is walk through it and keep going. The outlaw biker world will always have its legends and its secrets, but the stories that matter are about survivors, people who break the pattern, who refuse to hand their childhood to a myth and call it fate. Jake's journey is one in 1,000. Some end in tragedy. Some end with names carved into stone. And some, like his, end with a man standing in the light and saying, "Not me. Not anymore." If Jake's story hit you the way it hit me, don't miss what's coming next. Subscribe to Ride Secrets and ring the bell for more raw, untold stories from the edges of the motorcycle world. What club, legend, or biker myth should we uncover next? Drop your ideas in the comments. Your suggestion could be our next deep dive. And tell me the moment in this story that stuck with you the most. I'm pinning the best comment and shouting out one of you in the next video. The truth is always more dangerous than the legend. Stay safe. Keep your eyes open. Ride legal, ride free, and choose your own ending.